Greetings, everyone. My name is Anit, and I welcome you to this webinar where we are joined by two experts in EV charging. Allow me to greet and welcome Mr. Christopher Jessic and Mr. Mukesh Kumar Bansal. Christopher is the CEO at Voltility, where he is building a de facto mobility network for Singapore, having already launched the region's first e-roaming pilot across 5 operators and active deployments for open payments acceptance at charging stations, with a strong pipeline of vehicle charging station manufacturers and fleet operators across multiple countries in 2023 and beyond. He's also instrumental as the CEO at Beep, building common networks in fragmented ecosystems empowered by IoT to drive data interoperability and better user experiences, powering over 33 million transactions across thousands of touchpoints to date in 5 countries. We also have Mr. Mukesh Kumar Bansal, CTO at TelioEV, who is contributing significantly to TelioEV's efforts to accelerate e-mobility in India. TelioEV has been at the forefront of EV charging in India and offers bleeding-edge software solutions which empower EV charging businesses by maximizing the ROI on their EV charging infrastructure and empower the EV users by providing them a rich and reliable charging experience. Welcome, Christopher and Mukesh, to this webinar. We look forward to talking to you, sharing some questions that we've been wondering about, and having your perspective and insights about them.
Thank you, Anat, for introduction.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Great. Before we begin with the questions, I'd like to ask our guests if they would like to add something to the introduction. Let me start with Christopher. If there's anything that you'd like to add to this introduction, please go ahead.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO for Beep and for Voltility. So the relationship between the two is that actually at Beep, we look at building core IoT connectivity. We are not building the IoT devices ourselves. We are not building the IoT management systems ourselves. We think that there are many experts out there like Telio that can do that. But we're looking at the interface to common connectivity that a lot of customers tend to use, for example, for payments, for authentication, identification. We feel that there is a fragmentation in the physical space, and how there are several providers for connectivity in the e-commerce, online space. We want to bring it to the physical space. And so Voltility is our e-mobility arm that leverages on this core technology platform that we have that allows connectivity to all the different payment systems. And we combine it together with connectivity to the EV ecosystem, for charging stations and for vehicles and fleets.
Well, that's great. Thank you for the clarification, Christopher. It was great to have that structure in knowledge. Anything to be added from you, Mukesh? Anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's fine. You already explained very well.
Well, great. Then I'll come back to you again with the question now. So let me start with the first question. I'll direct it to Mukesh. What key challenges of the EV industry does the CMS solve?
Okay, so EV industry is new, evolving industries in most of the countries, right? So there are a couple of challenges which are there in the market, right? So say stability in the charging network, then you can say station management, proper station management, then you can standardization again. Initially, when the charger rolled out in the industry, so people have IoT connected chargers, so they were no standard following any standard protocols. But now this part is also taken care by the CMS by adopting international standards. So like OCPP, OCPI, roaming standard, the charging management protocol, right? So this is the big challenge. And another thing, another challenge is which CMS is helping to solve in the industries like analytics and the insights, basically, I would say, like how much charging is happening, what is the load on the grid, maybe the discoms, right? For EV users, they want to see their all transactions. The charge point operator, they want to see what is happening on their different charging sites, right? And another thing which is most important, the billing and the payment integration. Most of the chargers, they are unattended. They are on the highways. They are on the remote areas. So CMS helps them operate like help the operation of these chargers without intervention of any people. So anybody can download the app. They can make the payment by scanning the QR code, maybe by swiping the credit card on the POS machine attached to the charging station. So these are the key challenges. And another big challenge which is required as these stations are growing, the number of stations are growing, right? So a lot of new features which are coming up in day by day. Like earlier, if you see, the people were not able to utilize the charger. Like if I am having a charger which is with me, maybe I am using an app which is not compatible,
Mm.
right,
Yeah.
to the charger in front of me. So these kind of things are also possible now with the CMS with OCPI protocols integrated with that, the roaming protocols. So that way, a lot of different challenges which CMS is helping to solve for the end user, for the charge point operators, for the discoms, right, for the grid management companies, and different stakeholders are there.
So we often, I mean, something that is obvious to us pretty much is, yeah, CMS will be helping us to monitor the operations, monitor the sessions. But yeah, a very I'd say novel point that you mentioned is there's a lot of innovation that is driven by the availability and the functionality of the CMS itself. So the rich
Yeah,
experience that we would like to provide the customers, that is
yeah,
also pretty much driven. There's another thrust that is being provided by a functional CMS to the innovation that is brought about in the industry in its entirety, right? So
yeah.
let me come to with the next question to Christopher. Yeah, it's how does the integration of payment gateways with CMS help the CPOs to better track their businesses?
Sure. So you put a charging station in your own home, right? So if you have a landed property or you have access to your own parking lot, you put a charging station there, you charge your vehicle, you don't have to worry about payment. You don't have to worry about authentication, knowing who is charging because it's in your own private space.
Mm,
But the thing is that for a use case when you're installing a charging station outside in a location where you would like to identify who the customer is. You may want to say that for certain customers you give a discount or for free, but for certain other customers you want to fully charge, right? You can have private and public hybrid use cases. Then the challenge is how do you make money? How do you make sure that you can actually collect the funds?
mm,
And there are, many ways that this can be solved if there is a person there, right? If it's attended. But as Mukesh shared, it is usually an unattended setting. Usually you would install a station there and you would not have any people there. So you do have to have some way to collect money, cashless money through the internet or through physical exchange of your card, like tapping your credit card, tapping your debit card, scanning a QR code. And to that extent, there are many different kinds of payment systems, and they are generally different in different countries. So if you look at within a single country, then you could have, Paytm, UPI, whatever kinds of QR codes that are exist already, and debit and credit cards. But when you go to a different country, in different regions, they have their own payment systems. So like in Singapore, where we are headquartered, we have, PayNow standards, which is a kind of banking QR code, but you also have your wallets, like Shopee Pay and Grab Pay and Alipay, WeChat Pay, and many other players. And you also have your transport cards, and you also have your credit and debit cards, which they require local acceptance,
mm,
where you have the banks that facilitate it. So it's a lot more complex to be able to say that I can accept whatever a customer wants to pay, because you can have customers using different methods of payment. And to be able to have a system that provides the management of the charging station and also allows you to tell your customer that I can accept the mode of payment that you're available with, and I don't require you to have to use one particular kind of system only, or you have to register with me ahead of time. That allows you to be more flexible with your customer base. So you can, of course, still accept your kind of memberships or free charging, which is something that you don't really need payments for. But you can also accept customers that just come along the way. They drive along the highway and they don't always use your stations because they're just there for a short time, but they still need to charge. And then you can accept any kind of cashless payments in the system. So it really broadens the range of acceptance, the kinds of customers you can treat. It allows you to be more flexible in the locations you can install, and it doesn't overlap with your existing features for private usage.
well,
And just it's nicely explained by Christopher, right? Just to add on one more use case of the payment gateways in terms of businesses, right? So if suppose there is a larger company, a charge point operator, he's maintaining different charging sites in different location, different part, and they are subleased to some other vendors, right? So it is also easy to like reconcile the revenue from all the charging station and distribute to their sub-leasing partners or maybe sub-partners who are supporting that network. So it's also easy by the integration of payment gateways, which automatically take care of all these reconciliation thing and distribute the portion of their revenue to the all the stakeholders who are there. And if any refund, any payment failures, if any refund has to done to the customer, so that is also taken care by the payment gateways with the help of CMS integration with that.
So ultimately, the EV user is not left stranded shuffling in the wallet for a relevant
Yes.
card. They can just go ahead with whatever they can get their hands on, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's quite convenient, and I certainly see that being a key factor to the extent to which e-mobility will be adopted by the people, because it all boils down to convenience of operating it, right? And if that is provided, it's going to be Rembrandt. It got no bounds then. Well, the next question is, please consider this to be open to both, and please let me know whatever are your thoughts about this. Who can put the CMS to its best use?
So Christopher, you want to take the question?
I think who can put a CMS to best use? Definitely, obviously, right? You're going to be the main primary customer for this is the person who runs the station. But if you think about the ecosystem of an EV kind of charging network, the operator is just one part of the whole equation. Of course, the operator owns the station, and so they're responsible for the asset. But they have to be liable to different stakeholders for different use cases, right? So if you are a operator and you own the charging station, but you don't own the land, so then you need to actually work out a relationship with your landlord to say, hey, I want to put a station and or many stations, and you will have your own commercial relationships with the landlord. Some of them will say that they want a revenue share. Some of them would say that they want a flat fee, a rental fee. Others would have, different kinds of arrangements with you. And in this point of time, when you have these kinds of commercial arrangements, you need data transparency. You need some way to automate the reporting to the landlord to say, hey, this is per our agreement, according to these statistics of total charge or total revenue or total visits, whatever, I can pay you, and then we can share, right? So of course, then the CSMS is useful for the landowner to know, okay, what is the total number of visits, what is the total amount of charge, things like that. And likewise, is on the topic of payments, the CSMS that can be connected to payments would be useful for the driver. The driver will have a better experience because the CSMS supports the payments access, and they are able to use whatever kind of mode of payment that they like to use and just go to the station and pay. Of course, in the end, it's still down to the operator to say that they choose the right CMS, right? If they choose the right CMS and they're able to facilitate all of this connectivity, it makes their life easier, but it also makes the lives of the stakeholders easier. If you extend it to roaming, you're able to then say that, there's going to be many, operators in the market, especially in a big country like in India or in Indonesia or Thailand or these kinds of larger locations. You will have a lot of people, a lot of businesses that have a good reason to install charging stations, and they might not be in the same industries to start. You can think, yeah, naturally oil and gas companies would do it because they have very good locations. They have all these petrol stations that are right in the middle of highways, and you have very good traffic. But you can also think of players that own parking stations. You can think of MCSTs, people that run condominiums, people that run shopping centers, people that run your factory areas and your ports, and anywhere that vehicles can go. Running a charging station can be a very attractive proposition, especially as EV adoption is set to grow, right? And when you think of it as a whole sum of its parts, a CSMS, yes, well, it directly serves an operator, but a good CSMS will bring value to all of the stakeholders just by facilitating a very seamless experience for charge.
Yeah, it's nicely like they are really good insights you have given, Christopher. Just want to add on to this, right? There are other stakeholders in the EV ecosystem, right, who are like fleet operators, right? And even though utility and energy providers, and you can say the government bodies, right? So fleet operators can also take use of these as a billing reconciliation, giving a seamless like operations to the fleet drivers, right, with the help of CMS. Then the utility companies also, they can also see how much load they are getting in particular area, right, on the grid. So they can also manage that. And with the help of CMS now, the load management system is also in place where the people, the charge operator, they can manage the load of the chargers dynamically based on the load on the grid. So there are different stakeholders. If we say like whoever is attached to the EV ecosystem, they definitely can get benefit out of the CMS in one or another form, right? Yeah.
You mentioned monitoring and being able to have a look or supervise what is going on with the infrastructure, right? EV charging infrastructure,
Mhm.
and this brings a very good. This is a good segue, which brings me to the next question, and I'll direct it to you, Mukesh. How does the
Mhm.
CMS play an essential role in monitoring infrastructure stability and energy management?
Yeah. So as I already mentioned in my previous answer, right? So right now, what is happening? All the chargers are connected on the public infra, the electricity infrastructure, right? So it
Yeah.
is also very important to have a stability on the grid itself,
Hmm.
because every area is having a particular load sanction, or maybe a condominium, or maybe a building, apartment, right, where the infra chargers are installed. They have a limited load with them.
Hmm.
So it is very important to manage the load. So you should have a load balancing on the site itself, right? So with the help of CMS, you can have a dynamic load management where with the help of IoT, with the help of communication with the grid, or maybe on the local system of the building, electrical system, where the real-time situation of the load can be monitored, and with the business logic on top of the real data coming from the grid load, building load, along with the real-time charging monitored by the CMS, which is happening on the chargers. So the load on the chargers can be monitored, managed. That is one thing, which is a load balancing or load management thing. Energy management is there definitely, and real time monitoring in terms of if any charger is up and running or any fault is happening, it's stable, like available for charging to the customers or not. So this really helps to the like having a stable charging infra in term of charger, you can say diagnostic part, which can be monitored in terms of grid management or energy utility kind of thing. Yeah,
So this ultimately has some serious implications on the operational cost, maintenance cost, and the overall TCO for the EV charging stations that are being set up, right? Um,
definitely, definitely.
which has these capabilities.
Yes.
Um, so we've already talked about payment gateways already, which is why I'll come to Christopher. Christopher, why do you think EV charging providers should care about EV charging management system which supports multiple gateways? You've already talked about it. If you would like to shed some more light into any pointers that you think can be added on top of these, please go ahead.
Sure. So you, as an operator, there's many different profiles of who an operator is, right? You can either be, someone that's focused on really operating a station and running stations as your business, or you can also be focused on running stations as a extra kind of arm of your existing business that makes sense. And so you have operators that are focused locally in one very specific region, or they can be spread out, or they can actually need to work with many different stakeholders in installing stations. So having a platform that can support these management systems that have all these different kinds of payments allows you to be more flexible in dealing with the demands of the different kinds of locations that you install. So certain locations might favor certain kinds of payment systems, and they might ask for hybrid solutions where you have both open payments as well as kind of closed loop systems where either, maybe it's a factory area, it's an office area, they want their workers to have free charging, but either that or, a rated kind of differentiation, free charging up to X amount of kilowatt hours, megawatt hours, and then after that, discounted rates, and then after that, public rates, stuff like that, where you want to be able to be equipped with the most amount of support for whatever that location demands. And if you are an operator that actually wants to kind of have a presence across different countries, then it is very important for you to have something that is able to centralize connectivity to different kinds of the payment systems, localized to the needs of that particular individual locations. Otherwise, what you have to do is that you end up with a lot of fragmentation in managing different locations and different spots.
So loyalty, customer loyalty. I think customer loyalty is a great differentiator between entities, right? Between companies. So loyalty programs that are being run where a customer has a particular card which is provided to that customer, in turn, for an organization appreciating their loyalty. So having those cards which are quite exclusive, we really need these multiple payment gateways to be able to accommodate all such scenarios where businesses are looking to offer their clients or their preferred clients some extra benefits, right?
Yeah. So I mean, besides that, the main point is what you see today for fuel. If you pump petrol or diesel at any kind of gas station in many countries around the world, you will see that there's actually a lot of partnerships between the payment companies, especially banks, and the fuel providers. You will get cashbacks, you will get a lot of points, air miles, or you get kind of special redemptions that you can make use of if you use a certain credit card, if you use a certain debit card, or if you use certain kind of payment QR code. And we see that kind of demand starting to be explored by banks looking at EV. So within the context of Southeast Asia, starting with Singapore, we are already talking to quite a few different banks here that are looking at how they can modernize and move towards a sustainable initiatives where they shift their model from what today they have for fuel, where they have partnerships with fuel stations and they say that if their customers use their cards and they go there and they pay and they get 15, 10% cashback kind of discounts and promotions. They're trying to formulate a new model for EV charging. Can they give discounts and cashbacks like they do it for fuel if you use their card to charge, to tap and to pay? And of course, this is powered by the marketing budget, by their sustainability budgets in the banks. And of course, they have their own kind of incentives as well as their own KPIs to hit. But by being able to say that I can support the gateway that is preferred by this bank, you can actually say that you can tap into the kinds of promotions, the kinds of budgets and incentives and marketing capabilities of these payment companies. Some of them are huge players to drive the interest and the adoption to your charging station, right? If you support a certain payment system and now a bank says that, hey, any of my card holders that can go to your stations because your stations support these kinds of payment options, and we have a partnership where we can recognize when our cardholders use that network, then they are driving traffic to you. And that's a very beneficial thing as an operator. That's a huge plus without you needing to do the marketing work.
Yeah, no, totally agree to that. Anything that you would like to mention, Mukesh, here about these?
I think Christopher has already spoken very nicely, and he has covered almost all the aspect of the different payment gateways and the benefit, right?
So let me come to you, Mukesh, with another question. You also already mentioned in the introductory part of CMS the standards, the international standards, be it like OCPP, one of the major ones. Following them will have a really heavy impact on the customer experience comprehensively. So the question to you is, how will the CMS use such an emerging standard, be it OCPP, to communicate directly to the EV charger? How does it do that?
So CMS basically using OCPP and other emerging standards which are for charging. OCPP stands for Open Charge Point Protocol, which means this is a protocol which helps communication between CMS and the EV charger. Okay, so this with the help of this protocol, it's flexible enough. With the help of this, we can monitor what is happening in the charger, right? We can control the charging processes, the transactions.
Yeah.
Even though we can also get the various information from the chargers like voltage, current, temperature, if any error is there, if any fault is there, with the help of this. And these data which we collect from the charger help giving the more insights to the end user or the CPO, we say. And another thing, this is the way by adopting the emerging standard like OCPP, right? So we can make the charger like CMS, which is hardware agnostic. So the standard also make sure that the CPO is not dependent on one manufacturer, one particular make of the charger. So with the help of standards, the standardized CMS, which is following the standard protocol like OCPP, so they can use any of the charger from any of the make, right? And they can start monitoring and they can start their business on that. And this helps like the compatibility and interoperability between the different OEMs also. So that's why it's very important like to have a CMS or integration of the standard protocols. And as like OCPP is widely used across the globe, it is not only limited to one country. So that also helps here
Well,
to scale the operation, scale the charging network.
since you mentioned being hardware agnostic and what are why is a CMS supposed to be that? Um, how do you think? How essential is it to create a CMS hardware agnostic?
Yeah, it's very essential, right? So today maybe CPO is buying the charging station from company X, right? So maybe tomorrow that company stop giving the support of that. Maybe the charging stations they stop the operation, right? And maybe the new model comes up, right? So from another make they are getting a good pricing. So definitely if they invested in one CMS and if the CMS is not hardware agnostic, then it's wastage of money for him. He has to again buy a work on the new CMS company, partner with them, and come up with the new CMS. So that's why it's very essential to have a CMS which is hardware agnostic for a CPO to adopt that, so that they are not facing any challenges related to the hardware, related to one supplier, or maybe any particular charger in future.
Makes the upgradation easier as well, right? From one
Yes, yes,
charger to the other.
true.
Um,
Yeah.
well, this next question, it's going to be the final one of this sequence. I'll come to Christopher for this. So since you have a profound experience and expertise with roaming, which is why my next question is to you, how can CMS platforms that support roaming provide a significant value add for EV charging providers?
So roaming basically allows you to tap into the general EV ecosystem, the ability to say that you can serve the biggest market potential possible. And the reason is that in the EV segment will grow exponentially over the next few years, especially if you look at how it has played out in the European Union, in China, in the US. And when you go to that level of adoption and that kind of numbers and volume, it is natural that there will be a lot of operators that come into the space. It is a lot cheaper to run a charging station than it is to run a fuel station, right? A fuel station takes millions of dollars in investment and millions of dollars in maintenance. A charging station can cost just a few $1,000s, right? And you're talking in USD, it can be even cheaper than that. So the relative difference in the barrier to entry for running a charging station is not is lower, right? It's a lot lower that there will be a lot of players in the market. And there's two kinds of profiles here. One is if you are a charging station operator and you don't have your own fleet. So you're just really purely playing on, okay, I want to be able to run stations and generate money from it. Then yes, you can go out there, you can use your own apps, you can support open payment, you can try and get as many customers as possible into your ecosystem. But as the entire space grows, the pie is huge, right? So there will always be other operators with their own customers and their own systems and their own networks out there. And so roaming allows you to say that, yes, I want some customers to be loyal to me, but for those customers that will not continuously use me, maybe they don't have cars, they don't live next to my stations. They are, someone that travels along the way and they can hit my station once in a while. That's the whole point of roaming, right? It's the same concept as travel. If I go from country to country, my SIM card, I don't need to actually change SIM cards, right? Because I can do roaming through my telco. The whole point about that is that you can allow other drivers to access your station from platforms that are natively connected to whatever ecosystem they're using. So open payments, supporting credit cards, QR codes, those facilitate that kind of ad hoc, transient transactions. But there will also be two different kinds of groups, your consumer groups and your commercial groups, that either they have a car which has an automaker that integrated a dashboard access to see charging stations and to see the ability to go to that station and they want to access charging directly from inside the vehicle because it's a very nice experience that like I have everything, all the control systems all in my car. Or you can also have the commercial side where they have fleet applications. And these applications are not just there for charging, they're there for route management, they're there for jobs, they're there to pay out to the drivers, there's a lot of other functions. But when you move to an EV fleet, you also need to get access to charging for the drivers. And then they would also want to have a way to easily allow their drivers to go across any part of the country, any part of the cities and charge. They want to have a simple solution because they need to handle the finance, the settlement, the tallying of each driver's, how much fees. It might not be that the driver pays because it's a business, it's a company vehicle. So all of these kinds of users, they would have this embedded ecosystem where the interface they use, the car dashboard, the fleet app, they have other value propositions that is useful to those drivers, and they also need charging. And if you are part of that roaming network, you're automatically listing all of your locations, making, you know, the information about where your charges are and the accessibility of it published to all of these interfaces that reach these drivers directly. And you know, through our platform, through the network that we're building, we're not charging for this kind of services. We're not charging for being able to list and to access all these platforms to show and improve visibility. So by being able to tap onto a network, what you're doing is to kind of advertise, broadcast yourself for access to more vehicles, and you don't lose that ability to still have your own ecosystem, your own loyalty platforms, and you still have that ability to do ad hoc payments. It's not like it is one or the other. It is about maximizing your reach, about maximizing your participation in the ecosystem, and just trying to get as many customers as possible.
So you are ultimately, I mean, talking of a business, so a business is ultimately offering a great customer experience, retaining the customers while not binding them to themselves, to one business or a couple of businesses, right? Well, sounds paradoxical, but yeah, it's true. Anyway, this certainly, thank you both of you, Mukesh and Christopher. This has been quite a value-packed conversation. I really appreciate your thoughts and the perspectives that you shared. Thank you to the audience. Thank you all of us for joining us today in this informative webinar. I hope it was as intriguing and insightful for you as it has been for me. We really appreciate your active participation here and in sending us your valuable questions. We shall continue to seek answers to them and share with you. If you have any additional questions or would like further clarification, please do not hesitate to contact us through LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll be more than happy to assist you. Please also follow us on these channels. It will be thrilling to have you on board. Thank you once again for your time and attention. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.